go to play basketball at the playground, go down to the China Beach, and lay in the fog and the sun and swim in the ocean. When I was about 17 or 18, it was raining in San Francisco, and my friends and I used to take 5 gallons of gas and light things on fire.
We love to go to the railroad and put our ear in the railroad to see if the train is coming.
It didn't hurt anybody, I gotta point that out. We were driving up California Street and we got to Powell Street, and the Powell Street cable car tracks went down to Union Square. So it was raining, so I got the bright idea, I'll just pour gas in the train track, the cable car tracks. So I poured 5 gallons of gas in the cable car tracks, lit it on fire, and it burned from the top of California Street all the way down to Union Square. Cars were screaming all over the place. Needless to say, we ran like hell. Jump in our cars and drive around the city, play golf. I did tap dancing and stuff with my friends at the tap dancing school. And I modeled as a young kid, like 5 or 6. And I did a trampoline act when I was 10, tramping and unicycle and toured Wisconsin with my Uncle Bud. And then other than that, played football in the street with my friends. Watch TV, that was it.
So
we had no technology.
Yeah.
The computer, I guess my phone.
A little bit. It's good in some way, but it's bad in another way for me.
That's about it. I'm not into technology. It's too much for me.
I take a lot of times and kids and so apart to the people. The people is so involved in that technology and don't talk to old people like us.
Uh-huh.
Well, I grew up in Montana. It was a little different on a ranch. We didn't have electricity, we didn't have TV or a phone, so when I came home, I either did my homework or I had to go outside and do my chores, so I spent a lot of time doing my homework. Then, when I did go outside, I would either hop on my horse or run around through the woods with my dog, Puff. I had a great time, and that's about all I would do if I wasn't doing my chores.
My favorite thing to do when I was younger was ride my bike all over town. Oddly, I grew up in Moraga and lived on Sanders, and I would be outside pretty much all the time. We had a creek that ran under, I think it was called Wandell was the name of the street, and it had a big culvert, and we would go in there all the time with all my friends and catch pollywogs, frogs, play in the creek, get wet, ruin your clothes, stuff your mom didn't like.
I remember one time when I was a kid, I was about 14, I got hired by my uncle to pack mules for his pack trips, and we would take in about 10 people at a time for about 10 to 14 days. And we got into camp and we turned all the mules loose and horses, and I'd have to bring them in the morning. But we were so close to the ranch, they ran all the way back to the ranch, which was about 25 miles. And so I had to hop on my horse, catch up to the other ones, switch my saddle off of my horse onto another one, and gather them all back up and bring them all the way back. And that ended up to be in about a day and a half, and was about 50 to 60 miles in that 1 day and a half. And it was kind of hard at the time, but it's kind of funny now. I didn't spend any time using technology because we didn't have electricity or TVs or phones.
I remember the first game Atari came out with. I think it was Comm. And I'm pretty sure we had it. I don't remember playing it very often, but I remember playing it. And it was these two things paddles, I guess you would control on either side of the TV and try and hit a ball across. So we did that.
Technology is good with all the new things you can do with it, but I think people can get addicted to looking at their phones or TV too much and use it to where they're paying way too much attention to it and not to other things that are more important.
I think it's good in moderacy. Just to make sure my kids are safe, emergencies, fires, storms, I think that is good to know. What I don't really care about, I think it's ruining its politics. I don't think the news ever reports stuff fairly. So in that instances, that's where I think it's bad. But when my kid gets in an accident or gets hurt and I can see where she's at and I can go and help her, in that instance, I think it's a good thing.
I grew up on a farm, so my childhood memories might be a little different. But one of my favorite memories would be meeting with my neighbor, like the next pasture over at the fence, and we would meet up and then either go over to each other's houses or just hang out at the fence and talk. And my garden was on our side of the fence and he had chickens on the other side of the fence, so we'd like pick vegetables and like feed the chickens, or like come and then we'd play with like the other animals and we'd pretend that we were like chefs or weird kid stuff like that.
My favorite thing to do as a kid was probably just playing sports and playing outside with my friends. We had a basketball hoop and just hanging outside.
And then we also really built a lot of forts. Like, whenever my dad would like trim the trees, there'd be a ton of sticks everywhere, and then we'd make various stick forts and create them in like the fields, and they were really cool and we thought they were awesome. They'd have different names, or like we'd have different tree forts and stuff, and that was really fun.
I had one really close friend who lived just down the road, and we used to hang out all the time, like after school and on the weekends. There was a game called, I think it was 44 Home, so it's like a hybrid between like hide and go seek and tag, and we would just like play outside with a couple people that lived in the street, and we had to like hide from each other and then try and run home and get safe, and it was a pretty cool game, but that's one we used to play a lot.
I would say that I would spend 5 hours a week using technology.
As a kid, I'd probably spend about maybe like an hour, 2 hours tops a day, so like 7 hours a week, probably mainly just watching TV.
Actually, no, that's probably a lie. I think they're probably 8 hours a week, because you'd also watch TV, and I did like watching TV.
At nighttime, that was pretty much it.
But then there was Nintendo's. Maybe it's 10 hours a week. 10 hours with TV, little video games, and then sometimes I'd talk on like the home phone to my friends. But I didn't have a computer, and I didn't really go on the computer or the internet.
That's kind of changed a lot now. I spend a lot more time with technology. I spend every day in class on my laptop, either taking notes, or then I use my phone for texting and social media. So I would say it's probably more like 3-4 hours a day. So that adds up to quite a lot of hours, close to 20 hours, maybe even more in a week.
I spend a lot more now, probably like 2 hours a day doing everything I do on the phone, especially with like social media. I probably spend about 2 hours a day.
Hi, my name is Aaliyah, and I'm 6 years old.
Chloe, 14.
Okay. Finley, I'm 12. I like to and dance.
Dance, volleyball, swimming, reading.
Probably volleyball, soccer, swimming, video games, and watching movies.
To play with my friends and ride my bike.
Boxing, lacrosse. Yeah, that's about it.
To play on my iPad. Because they have like a lot of games and like a lot of videos that I can watch. And
My iPad. Because that's how I communicate with my friends.
Probably TV.
My computer, for sure.
like an hour a day.
Per day, I'd say, because we have to use our computer for school, like 4 hours.
Well, I have to use it for school, so pretty often. Maybe usually only during the weekends. Oh, like 2 hours.
Every day.
Yes, it's accurate. Well, some days she plays a lot when it's clear out, and other days if she doesn't have friends around, she just goes on her iPad or and watches videos, and she just gets really glued to it and doesn't respond very well afterwards to certain stuff when you tell her to do stuff.
So what we were expecting to see was a general trend of the older generations that we interviewed being far less involved in using technology than the younger generations, but it turns out that the younger generations seem to keep themselves busy, which is why we kind of included the clip of Aaliyah's dad making sure that what she actually said was actually the truth, to avoid bias in any of our questions. But we were kind of expecting a bit of a different result, and we're surprised to see that despite the upswing of heavy technology usage in society and what's displayed to us in the media, we found that people didn't use technology as much as we thought they would. And so this kind of relates to what some of the kids said about using technology in the classroom, which was definitely the most prevalent piece of evidence that we picked out from our interviews, which relates to what we read about Dan Lippard's use of technology and eventually maybe even AI in the classroom. But that seems to be the most beneficial usage that we have extrapolated from all of our questions, which relates to the Lassallean core value of quality education. And so moving forward, we should try and look at our technology usage in and outside of the classroom as more beneficial than having this negative sort of stigma around it. We have created this world where technology has significantly infiltrated our lives, but we have to be cognizant of the fact that we can't let it completely take over, which it seems like from these general trends of questions is not the case.